Hi everyone, Materim here again with another narrative battle. Yay! I know it's been a while since we've done one of these, but our creative juices are flowing again, and we're ready to go ahead and get back to this narrative. So, going to start off with a game Empire versus Bretonnia at 2,500 points with a breakout scenario. Cartagia stared out into the coming storm. Feeling the cold mountain wind on his face did nothing to soothe the burning hatred inside. He stared down at the letter received this morning, dispatched from Lord Alphonius himself, recalling him back to Muslin. This was the third time in the past month he had to move his troops without warning or battle. It had been 2 weeks since he was ordered to split his forces, and place the second unit under the command of his only real companion, Prophetess Aveline Mardigan. She had moved her forces closer to the lands claimed by the undead, and he was forced to sit here and wait. Now he was ordered to move again. "My lord?" A shrill voice snapped Cartagia back from his thoughts. It was his squire, Thomas de Vardon, one of the knights that defected with him from the Empire, and now served as his honored battle standard-bearer. "The scouts have returned with news of your daughter." Cartagia stared at his squire for a moment, making sure he understood the man correctly. "Where is she, Thomas?" he exclaimed louder than he intended. "My lord, she is now a prisoner of the Empire. The beastmen laid siege to the town and forced them to flee. They seem to be heading back towards Longingsbrook, but their path takes them about a day south of here." Cartagia smiled for the first time in months, it seemed. Finally word of his daughter. How she had gotten into the hands of the Empire he couldn't imagine, but they would surrender her to him. If they survived a beastman attack, their forces would be weak, and they couldn't possibly want another battle so soon. "Ready the troops, and summon my honor guard. I want to be headed south within the day." "But the orders from Lord Alphonius." "Damn Alphonius! He promised this to me, and he can wait a day or two for our return. Now carry him out my orders." "Yes, my lord." Tomas began shouting orders to the lowborn to break camp. Cartagia walked back into his tent and knelt in front of the small altar Aveline had created for him. For the very first time he truly prayed and thanked the Lady of the Lake for the chance to retrieve part of his lost family. As he stood up, he felt a soft, gentle hand on his shoulder, and a peace fell over him. A soft voice spoke in his ear. "Guide my lost souls home." As he turned to see who it was, there was only the sound of the mountain wind and the carrying voices of the peasants. However, on his table laid a lance and shield, each bearing a single golden image of the Grail. Well, Cartagia had somewhat underestimated the Empire, and rather than surrender Anya Snowmane to them, the Empire is attempting to break through his lines and escape. This scenario is basically set up like a battle line. However, it is after every turn, or after turn 4, we're going to roll a die and add the turn to it, and on a 10+ the game ends. At that time, victory points are going to be scored. I get victory points for everything that I kill of his, and everything that, from my side, that escapes off the other end of the board. He gains victory points for anything he kills of mine, plus any units that are still left on the board at the end of the game. So this is the setup. Everything's pretty much normal. The one thing to keep in mind is that one stripe of varying color down the middle is a road. Any unit traveling down that path gets a +1 to their movement characteristic. So let's go ahead and get into deployment. Okay, on his left, or rather my left on his side, he has a unit of 5 mounted yeomen. The first of the knight units is a unit of 10 Knights of the Realm, with the full command and the banner of swiftness on them. With that unit is Sir Thomas de Vardon, his battle standard bearer, who has the Shrieking Blade, the Charmed Shield, and the Dawnstone. Next to that is a unit of 34 men-at-arms with full command. The unit on the road is Cartagia's honor guard. It is 10 Grail Knights with the Valorious standard and full command. With them is Lord Cartagia. He has the Silver Lance of the Blessed and the Grail Shield. There was a damsel in that first unit of knights who has the Silver Mirror and the Lore of Beasts, level 2. Then the other unit of knights there is a unit of knight errants, 10 of them. They have full command of the Gleaming Pennant. There's a second lady in there, Damsel the Lady, level 2, with the Dispel Scroll and the Lore of Beasts as well. And then up front, vanguarded up, is a unit of 3 Pegasus Knights with full command. And then on the other side, vanguarded up, you see he has another unit of 5 yeomen. Neither of these yeomen, or they have a musician, but other than that, no upgrades to either of the yeoman unit. Starting on my left, you can see scouted up, I have a unit of 10 huntsmen, and they have a standard and a musician. Behind that is a unit of 4 demigryph knights. With the steel standard, they have full command there as well. Up on the hill is a unit of 20 greatswords with 2 5-man detachments of handgunners, basically to use as chaff. I'm really trying to use the detachments here, since they're not worth any points on their own, to clog things up so my important units can get across the board. Then I have my unit of 30 halberdiers with full command. In front of them on the left is a detachment of 15 swordsmen. On the right is a detachment of 15 spearmen. In the swordsman detachment is Connor Dartmouth, a witch hunter with the obsidian blade, who declared Lord Cartagia as his enemy. In the main unit is Heinrich von Grunburg, my arch Lector, with the crown of meteoric iron, or the armor of meteoric iron and the crown of command. Felix Weishoff, my level 4 Lore of Light Mage, with the Shrieking Blade, Dispel Scroll, Talisman of Preservation. Also is Captain Derek Hosberg, my battle standard bearer, with the armor of silvered steel and the Luckstone. Behind that unit to the right there is my Celestial Hurricanum. And then on the road is my unit of 11 Inner Circle Knights with full command in the Razor standard. Hanging out with them is Father Aaron of Tal, my warrior priest on the Warhorse, and I'm trying out the Mace of Hellstrom on him. It's kind of a new build, but I'd like to see where it goes. Now, because I built this to be the idea that it's the survivors of the siege that I fought against the Beastmen all trying to escape, I didn't go with any war machines whatsoever. So I'm very much feeling that I'm at a disadvantage against the heavy armor that the Bretonnians have, so I'm kind of nervous there. But my hope is that I can kind of hit hard and find a break in his line and just push as much stuff across as I can. I think my brick of knights is pretty strong and could probably handle maybe one of those lances of knights if I can get the charge. And if that happens, I think that'll let me break through and get enough points off the table before the game ends to pull out a victory here. So that's my ultimate plan. So Empire gets the first turn, and I decide no guts, no glory, and I charge the knight unit right down the throat of these Pegasus Knights. He decides to hold, which I don't know if that's a great idea. He might have been able to flee with them, pull me out of position, but I got to give him credit for having the guts to stand there and take 2 ranks plus of knights in the face. So, very valorous, gentlemen. We'll have to see how it works out. And everything on my left flank just pushes up hard. I think this is the weakest flank, and so I just want to put as much pressure as I can here and see if I can break it. If this is going to be the break that it's close enough for a lot of my units to get off the board, then the only way I can really do it is just push here until it snaps and keep going. So, and then on my other flank, I basically am keeping the swordsmen in line with the great swords there. I'm moving the spearmen up, and hopefully I'm just using them to kind of split his forces a little. And I wanted to turn the halberdiers a little so they can see what's coming, because there are 2 lances over there. Oh, and I forgot to say it during his deployment, but you can see him here in the tower. The Green Knight is waiting to pop up and just ruin my day again. So we go into magic, and I get 1 spell off, and it was I don't even think it was something good. I think it was the reroll to wounds on the knight unit from the battle priest that's in there with him. And I had 12 dice, and he managed to shut me down, so it was pretty terrible. So we go into shooting, and my halfling huntsmen take one freaking yeoman off the board. I need more than that. But on the plus side, the knights are willing to give it to me, because in combat we just murdered the Pegasus Knights. They didn't do anything. Well, no, they did one wound back to Father Aaron, who's in there. None of my knights died, and I killed his Pegasi to the man. And then I reform like this. And I do this because I'm going to try and be clever here and see if it doesn't bite me in the ass. I'm pretty sure he's going to throw those lances at me, and with me being this wide, if I flee, I'm going to hit the Hurricanum and go through it and stop him from getting to me. Hopefully I won't roll too far and end up off the board, and I'll be able to rally, but otherwise it's going to make it very hard for him to actually run me down. And so during Bretonnia turn 1, that's exactly what happens. He charges both knight units at my knights. I stay on the first one, I flee on the second one, and I end up right here, not off the board. I don't remember whether he fails to redirect or if he chooses not to because it would put him in the forest. But either way, he's going to fail 2 charges there. And I apologize for an absolutely terribly blurry picture of him reforming his knights a little bit to keep an eye on my demigriffs. Then over here, he brings his fast cav around this lake. I'm not entirely sure what his intent was for them here. I think, being that he doesn't want to go through either the lake or the forest, adding more models here is just creating more of a choke point for him to get through. I mean, maybe he's wanting me to have more stuff to have to fight through before I can get past him, but in general, I'm not really sure about that move. And over here, you can see where the knights are reformed now, and he just slides the yeoman to the side so that if I hit them with something, if I don't overrun by a lot, it's going to put that thing in front arc charge from that Night Realm Lance. So I thought that was actually a pretty clever setup there. So during Magic, Flock of Doom pegs the archer or the spearman there. I'm not sure whether it was Flock of Doom or his actual yeoman, but somebody shoots or magics 3 spearmen down. I really don't care. I've got the Crown of Command on the halberdiers, so by the time they're actually in something, they're going to be stubborn anyway, and it won't really matter how many or few they are, because they're just a speed bump. Over here, these yeomen pluck down 1 of my halflings, which always makes me sad when those hairy-footed heroes give up the ghost, but they're doing what they're supposed to do and just aggravating him over there and taking away shots from something that could be more important. So I still consider that a win. So we go into Empire turn 2, and you see I charge my demigriffs into the yeoman. They stand, and you can see last turn that ethereal bastard, the Green Knight, showed up. And I have no magic weapons in this entire army except for the one my Wizard Lord is holding, because I had to spend some extra points, and one that the Witch Hunter is holding. So right now I just charge these handgunners in to hold him up. Over here, I do rally with the knights, so you see them kind of off to the side there in the bottom corner, and everything else I move up pretty aggressively. I know I'm going to have to come to some engagement here. And you can see with the handgunner, not the handgunners, the swordsmen, I'm moving them up so I might get a side charge against the Green Knight there and bring the Obsidian Blade that my my Witch Hunter has to bear against him. And here you see on this side, I've moved up the Great Swords. There's nothing they're going to be able to do. My best hope is if I have to engage the Green Knight with one of those, that he just totally flubs and I have enough static combat res to pop him over a turn or two, because I literally have no other way of dealing with this guy. And I'm hoping that he'll see the great swords and realize that they're the biggest point thing over there and come at them. And since I've got the handgunners there as a detachment within 3 inches, I'm going to countercharge and flank him. And that'll get me more combat res. And the great swords have like a 4-up armor save. So maybe if I can kind of spring that trap on him, that'll work. But I'm going to need a lot of static combat res to pop him next turn. So my magic, I had another something like 11 dice and managed to squeeze off 1 spell, and I don't even remember what it was. And we go into combat, and I run over this unit, the fast cav unit, and roll garbage for my pursuit roll. So you can see I've just set up the absolute most perfect flank charge that Realm Knight unit could have possibly asked for. So I'm kicking myself totally here, and I just don't know what I'm going to do because I'm about to lose those demigryphs. Then in combat here, the Green Knight pretty much fluffs. He kills 2 handgunners, and they break because they're too far away from their parent unit, and turn and run off. He decides not to pursue and turns to face the greatsword. So I'm thinking maybe my plan will work here, and he'll come charging in the face of the greatswords, because that would be fantastic. Or, well, not fantastic. It would be my only real hope. So we go into Bretonnia turn 2, and I see what he's planning. And it was a pretty good plan, too. He charges the mounted yeoman into my spearmen, basically so I can't get in there and choke up his big units. And then he brings in the long bomb charge from the Knight Errant unit right into my Celestial Hurricanum. And the way he's lined up at that angle, he's going to kill the Hurricanum, and he's going to clip the flank unit of my Halberdiers and just come screaming into the side of them. The only downside to that is he will be presenting a flank to the Knights, but if he can get in there and just do a lot of pain, it may be worth it. And then he slams into the side of the demigryphs, and when he hits, I get an idea. I have a champion in that unit, so I'm going to challenge him. Hopefully he accepts, otherwise he'll lose the lady's blessing. And I'll move in there and block him, and only the challenge will be able to happen. I'm still going to lose with static combat res, but I think it's my only chance not to have that unit deleted by the high strength that the Knights are going to do. And over here, he did exactly what I wanted him to. He charges in with the Green Knight. I countercharge with the handgunners, and we measured it out, and I can barely see the back end of the Green Knight with the other units. So on my next turn, if all of this is still there, and I still need the help, I'll be able to get those swordsmen and the Witch Hunter in to help. So I managed to stop him cold on magic again, still without using my Dispel Scroll, and all of his shooting's in combat, so we go into combat. And here, he tries to do the extra attacks with the Green Knight, and rolls a 1 to get extra attacks. So he throws into the greatswords, and only manages to inflict 2 wounds. Their armor saves them, and I do nothing, obviously, but when you count up the static combat res, I won by 2, and the Green Knight takes 2 wounds from his unstable rule. Then over here in this fight, I managed to lose a couple more. I think it's 2 more spearmen, but the spearmen just absolutely annihilate that fast cav unit, which is actually pretty impressive. I usually don't expect a whole lot from my spearmen, and they came through this time, so good job. And again, sorry for the blurry picture, but over here, the fight went as well as I could. He didn't kill my champion, but the static combat res was enough where it broke me. I fled, and he was an inch behind me. Now, I know you're looking at this, and I forgot to take away the standard bearer, but it's, spoiler alert, it's really not going to matter. So, I did goof on that, so oops. And over here, the Celestial Hurricanum just gets eaten, and he slams into the flank of my Halberdiers, which could be worse, because he presented just a delicious flank here. My whole hope for next turn is I can slam in there and just get off a crazy good magic phase, buff these knights and just delete that unit. So we go into Empire turn 3, and I just slam right in there. I think it was an automatic charge. But this is going to be a messy fight unless I can get some spells off. And if I can, I'm hoping this is going to be the breakthrough I need. I need to break through, and then I need to get into those Grail Knights. If I can deal with these two units, the peasants don't concern me. I'll be able to get everything off the board on this side. And over here you see that I slam the swordsman into the side of the Green Knight, my handgunners rally, and my demigriffs rally. And I face them sideways again, mainly so that I can keep doing the challenge trick, because I don't think I'm going to be able to handle that knight lance in a fair fight. So I'm hoping to just keep tying them up and let me deal with the Green Knight and get everything off through the middle here. So my magic does go well. I get off a lot of spells. I warrior priest buff pretty much the whole unit, and get the always strikes first and extra attack thing off on my knight unit. So, but we go ahead and decide to handle this first. The Green Knight just tries to get rid of some of this flank stuff, kills pretty much all of the handgunners, but dies to static combat res. And I reform like this. The Great Swords, if I can get over there and into the flank of those knights, they can put a hurt on them. So that's what I'm aiming for. I turn the swordsmen around in the other direction, because my plan with them is to get in there and tie up those peasants, so that once I blow through these knight units, I won't have to be tar pitted by them, and I'll be able to get my point value units off the board pretty much as soon as possible. So you see here, I do pretty much just absolutely destroy that knight unit and carry over like this. And you can see during my movement phase, I moved up the spearmen there to try to get in the way of the Grail Knights. It's not really going to work, because I mean, my knight unit is wide enough where they can swing by and just clip whatever the heck they need to clip to get into combat. But it was a try. So we go into Bretonnia turn 3, and he slammed right on into the side of the demigriffs, as I was expecting. Again, I'm going to lose this to static combat res unless I can get some major wounds in. So I'm going to do the challenge thing though, but I'm hoping at this point that he can make me flee off the board and follow me. And if he does, that'll open up that way for me to get out. And over here, peasants slam into the front of the spearmen, Grail Knights slam into the front of my knights. This was not what I wanted to have happen, but I don't think I have much choice. On the plus side, my knights are still always strikes first with an extra attack. My hope is to get in there and bust his character in the head with the Hellstrom Mace and maybe kill it and break the unit. So then over here, he starts casting a spell. I think it was Wissens on the unit, something like that. Miscasts it, blows up several knights. I don't remember how many, but I think at least a rank. I think he blew up at least 3 ranks because it was a small template, but it hit a lot of folks. And so we go into combat, and yeah, nothing works right. He ends up killing the knight or the champion in the challenge, breaks the unit, runs them down, and doesn't even have the courtesy to run off the board for me. So now I've lost a good hunk of points early on, and I don't really have the open hole I need. And you can see here too that the Green Knight reformed out of that lake again to cause me more problems. Over here, the peasants and the spearmen fight. I think I lose 2 more spearmen. He loses a few peasants, but I think I lose, but I rolled just boss on the leadership check, and they're not going anywhere. And we get into combat here. He kills 2 knights. I do actually manage to kill his general with the Hellstrom Mace, and I think I kill 1 more, so I'm up only by 1 or 2. So he's only got, I think, a 7 to make, but his BSB's all the way on the other side of the board. So he's got a leadership 7 break check with no reroll here on the knights, and he fails it. I run down an entire group of Grail Knights. And my opponent, understandably so, is very disappointed. He was. It was definitely a good fluffy list. I just don't, or a good fluffy choice. I just don't think the Grail Knights are worth it. Not as a main attack force. But so he loses them all there, and that's the hole I need. So those Knights are going to run for the border like they're after some Taco Bell and get the heck off out of here. And okay, I guess maybe we didn't do that first combat first, because here is the combat wounds. I don't know what I was talking about earlier. But yeah, so he is... I'm hoping I'm not just like forgetting turns, because that would be very annoying. But I think this is the combat here, and I'm down to like 3 spearmen. Or we fought that combat twice. That would be disappointing. So we go into my turn. I attempt to charge the peasants with the swordsmen, fail, and put them right in the flank for a flank charge by the Green Knight. I attempt to charge the... Yeah, I think what I did is I skipped a whole turn. I'm sorry about that, because he's reformed those knights too. But I attempt to charge the knights with the great swords and fail that as well. So my guys are kind of staggering around, and not a whole lot of good is coming out of it. And you can see here where they're getting ready to get countercharged. Or is that... Yeah, I don't know why I did this, but I put my my archers there in the middle. I have no idea what I was thinking. I'm sorry. It's been a very stressful week, and I've been forgetting things. So basically, my whole strategy on this flank is falling apart. Let's just sum it up with that. So the fight is still going on here. I think the peasants finally killed the spearmen that turn. So this turn, Green Knight, it's Bretonnia turn. Green Knight goes into the flank of the swordsman, and my only hope here is that the witch hunter that has the obsidian blade can get in there and maybe get a wound in. And so I go off on... God, I am sorry. This is jumbled as all crap. So yeah, because the Green Knight didn't do much. I didn't hit him with the obsidian blade, so we go to my turn. I go ahead and march the knights off the board, so I claim points for my own knight unit. I am so sorry that this is so jumbled. I'm going to try and make better sense of this from here on. And here you can see I decided to just charge my halberdiers into the peasants. I'm thinking in horde formation I can handle this, particularly if I can get a couple of good spells off. But what I really need to do is I need to get this halberdier unit past these peasants and way the hell down the road before his Green Knight gets finished with that swordsman unit. And otherwise he's going to get into me there, and that halberdier unit is never going away. So over here... Okay, I guess those pictures were just way out of order, because over here I move again. He hadn't charged me yet, so he must have just reformed last turn. And I'm running everybody for this border. He doesn't have a front line on my great swords yet, because they walked into the boiling flood and the back rank of them got burned off. So I put in the the handgunners there to give him a target. So we go into combat, and both my Witch Hunter and his Green Knight flub again. I think he kills one swordsman, and I succeed the roll to turn. I don't break and then succeed the roll to turn to face, because I'm within 3 inches of my parent unit that has the Crown of Command, so we're stubborn even though it is the forest. So that makes me pretty happy there. And with some magical power from the Lore of Light, my halberdiers just absolutely ace those peasants. I ended up getting Time Warp off again, so I'm getting extra attacks, plus always strikes first. It was just a mess. I just blendered them. There were a few left. They killed 3 halberdiers in response, it looks like 3 or 4. But I broke what was left and ran them down. And now my peasants are on the road, so they'll get the bonus. So we go into Bretonnia. I think this is turn 4, might be 5. The game doesn't end for a while, so it'll... My opponent kept rolling just terribly. And knight unit runs down those handgunners, and because I fled and rolled so-so, but he catches me, and that's where he ends up. And over here, the comedy of errors continues. My witch hunter is just absolute garbage. Can't hit anything. The excuse me. The knight is just flubbing like crazy. I think he's killing one or two guys at a time, and I'm just rolling very well on the leadership rolls, so they're not going anywhere. So I'm tying him up pretty good. Then we go to top of my turn. Halflings run off the board, so I get my 70 or so points for them, whatever they're worth. They might be 100. But at this point, I'm realizing I've wasted way too much time, and I need to get everything I can off the board ASAP. And as you can see here, both the halberdiers and the great swords leave the poor swordsman detachment to die alone in the woods. But I'm going to need at least one more turn of movement with both units to get them off the board. So if the swordsman can hold on, I might have a chance. But no, my luck finally fails. The Green Knight takes out a whole rank of the swordsmen. They break. He decides not to run me down, which was a very smart move, because he's going to get the points for them anyway since I can't get them off the board. And turns to face the back of my halberdier unit. So it's going to be Bretonnia turn next, and I need him to fail this charge. If he fails the charge, I can get off and I probably win the game. If he doesn't, and he doesn't. He rolls very, very well, slams into the back of my unit. At this point, if I can kill him this turn, despite all the benefits he's got, I can get away. This is about the point where I remember that the only person in this unit that has a magic weapon is my mage, and I cry a little inside. And over here, that knight errant unit reforms to face the back of my great swords. And the thing to keep in mind here too, the reason why I didn't flee is that any unit you have to be able to move off the board under your own volition to be counted for victory points. If I had fled from the Green Knight and run off the board, he still would have gotten the points for me. So during combat, I challenged the Green Knight to a combat with my mage. He kills my mage, but I'm stubborn and don't go anywhere, but I can't do anything to him. So we go into my turn, and I run the great swords the hell off the board because I need the points, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to break the Green Knight. I did reform after losing that battle, which I don't think I had turned around yet because I forgot to do it, and my opponent was awesome and let me do it after the fact. So you see here, we go into combat on this turn because there's literally nothing left, and he stops me from getting any of my spells off, but at this point, he doesn't do much because I just have so much static combat res in this unit that the knight ends up popping. So that's kind of where we stand. I think this is the end of turn 6. I'm sorry, I meant that was the end of my turn 6. Bottom of turn 6, these knights come screaming in with just a very, very lucky... Well, I don't want to say it's very lucky. It was kind of a longer charge. I think he needed a 10 to hit it, and slams me into the side. And unless just some absolute magic happens here, I think he's got me held up, which is really what he needs to do until he can roll that 6. But then he tries to cast a buff and miscasts on his own head, and so blows basically his last 2 ranks of knights out and puts a wound on his battle standard bearer. So I'm thinking, you know what, let me present a character wall over there and see what happens, and maybe I can get away. But it's still, I got to deal with that 1-up armor, or 2-up armor is the problem. And I kill one knight, he kills a few, maybe? Or no, because I presented the character wall. He didn't kill much of anything. And I reform to look like this afterwards, and he rolls at the end of the turn, and finally the game comes to a conclusion. So it was very cinematic there at the end. Hold steady, men! Archlector Heinrich von Grunburg called to his halberdiers. "Sigmar is with you!" Heinrich's faith was strong, but as he watched the approaching Bretonnian knights, he knew that it was about to be tested. He was pleased to see that the majority of his forces had broken through the Bretonnian lines and were escaping to Lonningsbrook, and he was determined to hold these knights long enough for them to make good on that escape, even if it cost him his life. In this moment, Heinrich wished that he still had Felix Weishoff at his side, but his young ward had been struck down by the Green Knight, and Heinrich did not even know if he still lived. As his men lowered their halberds and waited for the knights to bring their deaths, a voice rang out over the battlefield. It was the traitor Cartagia. "In the name of the lady, stop!" Amazingly, the knight lance pulled their lances to a halt short feet from the imperial line. Heinrich looked over and saw Cartagia, battered and bruised from his encounter with Father Aaron, riding quickly towards them. The Archlector was surprised to see him wearing the garb of a Grail Knight, and wondered briefly from whom he had stolen it. "Archlector," Cartagia began, "there is no need for further bloodshed between us. I have no quarrel with you or your men. I have only come for my daughter." "You claim kinship with this animal?" Heinrich asked, indicating the chained Snowmane woman they were taking to Lonningsbrook. "She is the daughter of my wife, lost all these years to the predations of the Snowmane clan," Cartagia responded. "I have sworn to recover her as a matter of honor." The Archlector cared little about the Snowmane woman, and less about the honor of a defector like Cartagia, but he had lost good men since taking this woman captive. First by the Beastmen, and now Bretonnia, and he could not see the reason for it. "Take her, then," Heinrich said, giving the signal for his men to release her. "May she bring you the luck that her presence has brought us." Cartagia dismounted and walked to the Snowmane woman, who was standing unusually still as she listened to the exchange between the two leaders. He held open his arms and said, "Anya, I am your father." Anya stepped forward into his embrace as much as she could with the chains still binding her, her eyes gazing up at him with a warm look. In the last moment her eyes narrowed and she threw her head straight at Cartagia. The resulting blow broke Cartagia's nose with a loud enough crack that the men surrounding them winced. Cartagia's men grabbed the woman's chains and pulled her away from their master, who just looked at the woman with a sad look on his blood-stained face. "Don't worry, my dear. The lady will see your mind healed of your suffering, just as she has mine, and when that is done, we shall rescue your mother." The sound of the girl's muffled curses was drowned by the sound of beating wings as a messenger from Alphonius arrived via Pegasus. He leapt from the steed and approached Cartagia. "Sir Cartagia, Lord Alphonius demands your presence immediately. The king's bastard has launched an attack on Kherson. The country is at war." A wave of guilt for ignoring Alphonius' summons crashed over Cartagia, and he signaled his men to prepare to leave. As he turned to go, Heinrich grabbed his arm. "Cartagia, this matter is closed, and I have greater issues to deal with than the charges against you at present. But know that the Empire is still closed to you. We will honor our pledges and treaties to Bretonnia if we are needed, but do not come here again, unless you wish to see if the Emperor's dungeons are to your liking." Cartagia knew that this was as close to a truce as he would get from the Archlector, so he smiled and bowed in agreement. "May Sigmar be with you, Archlector, and may your lady be with you, Cartagia." So the game ended in a draw. After we calculated up the points, it was a 30-something point lead for the Bretonnians, and not enough to claim victory. So this was a lot of fun. I enjoy doing these scenarios that have kind of a different feel to them, and the breakout scenario was kind of fun. We had a good time with it. This one is kind of a modified version of one we did before the first Warriors of Chaos player left, with the Beastmen Interestingly enough, it was the one where Anya was captured originally. So it's kind of poetic justice that this is where the same sort of scenario has her return to her father. So, um, all in all, I thought it was a very interesting game. As far as my opponent's list goes, I think his biggest mistake was taking the Grail Knights. I think, given how old that book is, for what you pay in points for the Grail Knights, they are just not worth it as a main combat block. Um, I know he was pretty disappointed. He didn't really get to see them do much of anything before my Knights whipped him and crushed him off the field, so he was kind of disappointed there. But he was pretty happy about the draw. As far as my list, I don't think there was anything really wrong with the list. I wasn't going to bring any war machines or anything because that was not really the fluff of the scenario for me. I don't really see them fleeing with a bunch of cannons and stuff, which obviously could have helped me, but I don't think it fit very well. So for kind of what the limits that I put on myself, I thought it was a strong list. I think my biggest problems were purely tactical. I think I let myself get trapped behind my detachments. I was intending to kind of use them to push in and engage, but with the halberdiers in horde form, once I had engaged with those detachments, I was kind of stuck behind them. And I didn't really give myself any maneuvering room. So I think in the future, if my gut tells me that I should have spread out more, but I think the problem is that I feel like the Empire forces need so much synergy and need to work together so much that there's only so far that you can spread out. I have also decided that I need to take more magic weapons. I am so tired of that freaking Green Knight showing up and wrecking my world because I'm just not prepared for him. Um, and I mean, I with my characters with the Empire, I'm not making them to be combat characters. I just need a better way to handle dealing with ethereals, because the magic missile thing, I even had 2 magic missiles this game and just couldn't get any spells off. I mean, I was out rolling my opponent dice wise. I mean, I was 10, 11, 12 dice every phase, but he was just rolling like a god, shutting me down. And the Bretonnians have basically 2 dispel scrolls, so there wasn't a whole heck of a lot I was going to do there. All in all, though, I thought it was a pretty fun game. It's nice to get back into the narratives. It's been a while and I've been missing it. I know we kind of wanted to focus on building our skills up a little bit, and I think we have, and I think the break will be good for our creative juices and help us start bridging the gap between what we were doing and using the Nagash supplement and the fluff there. So I think we're all very much looking forward to it. I said to Skip after this game was, now that Cartagia has Anya back, I have no freaking idea what he's going to do with her. So it'll be interesting to see, particularly now that Cartagia is going back to actually see Alphonius for the first time since his corruption, where that's going to go. So, all in all, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Sorry I got kind of lost in the middle, and I apologize for that. I hope it was still relatively clear to understand, and I'll try and make it better next time. My brain just totally melted halfway through this. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, as Lord T says, put them in the comments below. I'll be happy to get back to them. And feel free to subscribe and like the video. And we got a second narrative game in this same night, so I'm hoping to have that up in a few days, and we're going to keep this story rolling. Thanks for watching, guys, and we will catch you next time.